Hello, welcome back to Patch Math, where today we are going to continue patching your math knowledge over factoring polynomials. If you would like to review the greatest common factor method, it is in link to prior videos. In this video, we will be covering factoring by grouping. It is important to know that factor by grouping is applied to polynomials with 4 or more terms, and an even number of terms is the version we're going to go over first. If you are given an odd number of terms and you're going to use factoring by grouping, there are some other steps that you have to do first, and we will tackle those in the next video. So please hold tight for that topic. Looking here with an even number of terms given, starting with 4. I went ahead and wrote the main steps when it comes to factoring by grouping. Sometimes you're not given these in standard form, and it is important that we put these in standard form. In other words, we want to make sure the term with the greatest exponent comes first, and we decrease based on exponent from there, ending with our constant. So we do have that set up here. Moving on, we are going to split this down the middle, all right? We're going to split down the middle. In other words, we have 12a cubed minus 9a squared in our first binomial. Now this is a polynomial. These two parts are being added. We're just grouping them as two separate parts. So our 4a minus 3 goes in the second binomial. And it is important to know that the sign goes to the variable, the term takes the sign that is to the left of it for its sign. So this is positive 12a cubed. This is negative 9a squared, positive 4a minus 3, and so on. So I want to make sure that those signs hold firm in this new version that's been split down the middle. Now, some teachers will do this rather than using parentheses. They'll use a dotted line that they will then later take away. Not a big deal either way. So if you look, our second term is, once we split this down the middle, which is what we just did here, splitting it down the middle, is to factor the left group using the GCF method. So in this case, we're going to cover up the right-hand group and only focus in here at the left. Using the method we just learned in the video before this, GCF can be done by looking at the number in the terms first. In this case, we have a 12. And then we also have a negative 9. That is important. The greatest common factor of 12 and 9 is 3. So we're going to bring that 3 out front here. And we're going to divide that 3 off from each of those terms. In addition, we're going to look at the number of variables that we can factor out as well. This is a cubed. That's a times a times a. A squared is a times a. In other words, what is the max amount of a's that both terms share in common? Well, that's a times a squared. So we can factor that out front and divide that off from both of those terms. We will put what remains in our parentheses to the right of the 3a squared. 12 divided by 3 is 4. A cubed divided by a squared. That is the quotient rule of exponents, and that is just a. We can subtract those exponents. 3 minus 2 is 1, and a to the first power is just a. All right, now in this case, we did not factor out a sign, so that minus 9 will stay. 9 divided by 3 is 3, so that negative 9 becomes negative 3. A squared divided by a squared is just 1, and negative 3 times 1 is still negative 3. You have now successfully factored the left-hand side. Moving on, we can go ahead and cover up the left-hand side and focus on the right-hand side and factoring it. Now, it's super important that these parts are still being added to each other, and that sign will only change if we factor out a sign from in here. Now, look, and we're going to do the GCF again. If you look at our steps, GCF of the right group. It's the greatest common factor of the right group. In this case, we have a 4 and a 3 as our numbers, and 4 and 3 don't have any common factors other than 1. 3 is a prime number there, so 1 and 3 are its only factors, and 3 can't divide into 4, so we can bring out a 1 here. In this case, we're going to want to do it. All right, so we factor out. If you can't factor anything out, you're going to want to factor out a 1, and you'll see why in a minute. In this case, you'll see that we also don't have a variable that we can factor out. Our first term on this right-hand side may have a variable, but our second term does not. So in this case, this is just 1 times the binomial that we were given. 4a minus 3. Now we can uncover the other side, and it's important here that we look. We had a goal, whether you're aware of it or not, that we will have a common binomial that we'll be able to factor out of these two groups. So here is group 1, remember, group 1. Here is group 2, still group 2. The binomial that is shared by those two groups, that is multiplied in those two parts, is 4a minus 3, 4a minus 3. So we're going to take that 4a minus 3 and we're going to pull it out front. And that is a binomial. And both of those parts will be multiplied by what remains. And if we divide 4a minus 3 out of both of those two parts, you will see that that 3a squared written in blue there remains. And here is why that 1 mattered, because it is a placeholder for the fact that plus what? Plus 1. We can distribute a 1 in that binomial and it will not change its value, so we do have to put that there. Here is our final factored form. If you multiply these two binomials together, you will find that it will equal number 1. And if you want to check yourself, you can check with the FOIL method. Excuse me, which is in one of the videos I have posted earlier on. If you'll take a quick search for the FOIL method, you can use that to check yourself here. All right, that is factoring by grouping. Thank you so much for your time.